Hey, DC, there are some really big changes coming to the way that DC handles delinquent tax accounts. So I thought I got to jump on and we have to talk about it. I am Vanessa Hardy from Long and Foster, and I help buyers and sellers in DC and Northern Virginia to navigate complex real estate transactions. And I would say often in DC, some of the most complex transactions I work with people on, sellers who owe delinquent taxes. So let me catch you up. In DC, uh, we have tax lien sales where a seller who has a delinquent tax account, there are some criteria before you wind up on this delinquent tax account. But if you owe a lot of money in back taxes to DC has the right at this point. DC has the right to put that property on a tax lien sale list, and then investors can buy not the property, but at that tax lien sale, an investor can come in and buy the right to foreclose on that property. And after a process, that investor can pay the taxes due on the property, and then that investor can own the property through foreclosure. And that means if, as an example, let's say you're a homeowner who owns a property that's worth $400,000 and you owe $50,000 in taxes and you don't pay and you don't pay and you don't pay. And DC puts that property on the tax lien sale list. An investor can come in and pay. Eventually, there's a process, but that investor can come in, pay that $50,000 tax bill, and they can foreclose on the property and own a property that is worth $400,000. Investor pays a $50,000 tax bill. The rest of that equity belongs to the investor, and that homeowner is just out of luck. The homeowner has been foreclosed on, and they've lost all the equity in the property. Um, to some people, that does not sound fair. Right now, I'm not going to make a value judgment. To some people, that does not sound fair, and to others, it sounds like a really great way to make money as a real estate investor. So here's what happened this week. DC was all set to have a tax sale on July 15th, and then that tax sale was postponed. I'm going to do a separate video for homeowners who got letters saying that the tax sale was postponed and what that means for you, because that's very important. But I want to stay on this track about the postponement. So DC announces first that they're having the sale on July 15th, and they were gearing up for it. And then at the last minute, they postponed the sale. So the new sale date right now is August 19th. I'm going to check my notes. Yes, August 19th. So the question many people may have is, why the delay? Well, this is where it gets very interesting. So within the last few years, there was a Supreme Court case, and I'm going to summarize this. I'm not going to hand out any legal advice here. I'm going to summarize the Supreme Court case. Basically, it was a homeowner saying, hey, I owed, I'm just going to give you some round numbers. I owed $15,000 in back taxes, and then my county government came along and took my property to pay those taxes. And I had a property that was worth $300,000. They came along and took my property and paid off the tax debt, but never gave me any of my equity back. I had equity in that property far beyond what I owed in taxes, but I lost everything. And smart homeowner made it all the way to the Supreme Court under an argument that the government, my local government, is not allowed to take that much money from me to pay off a tax debt. And that local government was violating my constitutional rights. That homeowner won that case, and that was a few years ago. And what we saw after that case is that many jurisdictions in our country changed their tax laws, their tax delinquency laws. So the laws that allowed them to enforce tax debt. They changed the law so that they weren't taking all that equity from that homeowner. But DC didn't make those same changes according to some. I don't want to make a legal judgment at all on what DC did or didn't do, but some would say, critics would say, DC never got in compliance with that Supreme Court case. So there are people that are suing DC, delinquent homeowners are suing DC under that court case, saying, hey, DC's taking all of my equity for a tax debt. I've got a property worth $400,000. I owe $50,000. DC is setting up a system where someone can come in and take all of my equity to pay off that $50,000 debt. And so the homeowner is saying, you're violating my constitutional rights, and citing that case of the other homeowner. So as recently as June of this year, the House Oversight Committee in the United States Congress, the House Oversight Committee sent a letter to our DC Council saying, we don't think you're in compliance with that Supreme Court case. We think it's possible that your tax lien sale process is violating your DC citizens' constitutional rights. We may not have statehood in DC, but we still have the United States Constitution. So the House Oversight Committee is saying that we think that perhaps you're violating your citizens' constitutional rights by enforcing a tax lien sale process that would allow an investor to own the entirety of the equity in a property to pay off a much smaller tax debt. So fortunately, DC Council is responsive to that House Oversight request. And they said, hey, let's halt the tax lien sale in July. Let's make sure we're in compliance, and let's make sure we're protecting our citizens' constitutional rights. So I don't know what is going to happen between now and August 19th. I don't know if it's possible for them to make significant changes to the law that quickly. Maybe we'll see another postponement. I think it is very likely that we are going to see major changes to the tax sale process. So all I can say is, wow, watch this space. I'm definitely going to be following this really closely, because it is going to have a very big impact on the way that investors move in the DC space, and it could be a really huge thing for homeowners who are delinquent in taxes. So I'm Vanessa Hardy with Long & Foster, and I work with buyers and sellers in Northern Virginia and DC who are navigating complex situations just like this. So please feel free to use me as a resource.